welcome to our Founders Series event. And as you know, we meet weekly, every week this time, and usually it's what we call a community meeting, and we discuss all the things that we've been up to individually and jointly and severally to establish climate restoration as an idea whose time has come. Periodically, though, we have a special guest, and that's what we call those part of our Founders Series events, and we have a special guest this week that we're really excited to present. That's Hunter Lovins, and we'll be telling you a lot more about her in just a minute. It's really great to see all of your faces here, and some of you we haven't seen for a while, or if you're new to this call, we would really love to stay in touch with you. So I invite you, please put your contact info over in the chat panel so we can stay in touch with you. First, we want to share with you our mission and vision for the Foundation for Climate Restoration. And Joan, I think that this is what you wanted to do this part this week, right?
No, but I'm happy to do it.
Okay.
Okay. Vision and mission. Our vision is the climate restored by 2050. Our mission is to generate the global alignment for climate restoration by 2030, such that climate restoration becomes the overarching goal of all climate action. Climate restoration means restoring the climate to one humans have evolved and thrived in, with CO2 levels below 300 parts per million.
Thank you, John. So normally we do a little more dwelling on this part. We have such an important guest, and we want to give her so much time this week that we're going to move right into our discussion with our special guest. But Julia is going to give Hunter the proper introduction here for us all.
Yeah, so it's just such an honor to have you here, Hunter. Hunter is a practitioner and trainer in regenerative agriculture and holistic grazing, and a leading voice in eco-restoration. She's co-founded the Rocky Mountain Institute. She was a pioneer in clean energy. And, you know, we really wanted to hear from Hunter, because I say, Hunter, that this group of people here, we're all students of who do we need to become to cause shifts in overarching paradigms with regard to the environment. You know, we're students of that, and we're always, we're not looking for tips and techniques. We're looking at who do I need to grow into being. And we want to hear your story and what you're up to now, so that we can see what lessons that we can learn from you. And, you know, I know you're going to speak for about 15 or 20 minutes, and then we'll open it up for Q&A. So over to you.
Well, thank you all so much for having me here. I am, I guess, of course, as any sensible person would be, completely in alignment with your mission and vision. I don't think I have to tell y'all that we are in a global climate crisis. It is existential. I mean, we solve this or humanity as we know it goes away. People say, save the earth. The earth will be fine. It'll shake us off like a bad case of fleas, but it's us, it's humans, and life as we know it that is at risk.
Yeah, right.
And this is becoming, interestingly, actually of interest to the financial community. There was a piece, and I will later put the URL for it in the chat box, by a guy named Gerhard Thallinger, board member of Allianz, who said at 3 degrees C global heating, climate damage cannot be insured against, covered by governments, or adapted to. That means no more mortgages, no new real estate development, no long-term investment, no financial stability. The financial sector as we know it ceases to function, and with it, capitalism as we know it ceases to be viable. This is about saving the conditions under which markets, finance, and civilization itself can continue to operate. So we have a serious challenge in front of us. The good news is we know how to solve the climate crisis, and we know how to do so at a profit. There are, roughly speaking, two things that we want to do. One, switch away from burning fossil fuels to renewable energy and energy efficiency, so renewables efficiently used at warp speed, in part because renewables are now everywhere. Well, the smart renewables, cheaper than fossil. And this is coming as a rude surprise to a lot of people in the fossil industry. News out this week, wind and solar in the US has just topped coal. In China, emissions appear to have peaked, again, because of commitment to renewable energy. It's happening. And it's happening because wind, solar, storage together are coming on at commercial bids at around 3 cents a kilowatt hour. Running a gas plant is around 4 cents a kilowatt hour. Building a new one, 6 and up. New coal around 10, new nuclear around 20. Just do the math. And increasingly, utilities and companies and anybody who is in the business of purchasing energy supplies is doing the math. The current thrust by the administration to try to stop this will slow things down a bit, and that's too bad from a climate perspective. They cannot stop it. Again, the economics are simply overwhelming. But the real problem facing us, as you all have correctly identified, is taking the excess carbon we've already put into the atmosphere out and putting it somewhere durably. And again, we know how to do this. Peter and y'all wrote a very interesting book on ocean fertilization with iron. This is an interesting technology. I've been following it for a while. We'll continue to follow it. One little problem with it, though, is it isn't at the moment a not commercially viable enterprise. In the meeting that we were at in Texas, there was some interesting thought about because it fertilizes the ocean, it will jumpstart the fisheries, and people who make a living pulling fish out of the ocean might have an interest in paying for it. Great, if you can get that to happen, that's brilliant. Meanwhile, we know that the Earth decarbonized itself several times before. 60 million years ago, the Earth was at something like 1,000 parts per million concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere. When we humans evolved, it was at 280. Where'd the carbon go? Professor Greg Ritelek at Oregon has shown that in large part it went into the soil because of the coevolution of grasslands and grazing animals. Something around 30 million years ago, there evolved at the edge of the forests little grazing animals. They nibbled the grass. Oh, by the way, at 1,000 parts per million, the Earth is carpeted in trees. I love trees. Trees are cool. I helped create Tree People in Los Angeles. We planted over 1 million trees. It's not the answer to the climate crisis. At 1,000 parts per million, there were a lot of trees. What changed was the spread of the grasslands and the emergence of these vast herds of grazing animals, particularly ruminants, ungulates. When you eat grass, when a cow or an elk or a bison eats grass, the roots slough polysaccharide, sugars, that feeds the microbiological community in the soil, which mineralizes the carbon, and it then durably stays there. When the pioneers came across the Great Plains of the United States, They found 10 feet of thick black soil, in some places 20 feet. It's now down to inches because of industrial agriculture. It got there, again, because of the coevolution of the grasslands and grazing animals, and we know how to put it back. There's science by Peter Bick out of Arizona State showing that you can get over a ton of carbon per acre per year sequestered. Dr. Megan Mackmuller thinks it's closer to 5 to 8 tons of carbon per acre per year. At 5.2 million square kilometers of grasslands, roughly 21 billion acres, again, do the math, potential of sequestering 25 gigatons of carbon per year just from grazing. Rodale Institute has shown that if you use compost-based organic vegetable production, so row crops, you can absorb all of the annual emissions, all anthropogenic emissions. And again, doing this is profitable. When you do this kind of what's called holistic grazing or organic vegetable production, in the case of grazing, you can double the carrying capacity of cattle even on degraded rangeland. The work by Peter Bick showed that in every case studied, and what he did was fence line comparisons, an industrial farm or ranch, a holistic regenerative farm or ranch. So same soil, same time, everything the same except how you manage the ground. The regenerative farms were dramatically more profitable, in part because you don't need fertilizer. And with the price of fertilizer going up with the Ukraine war, this is a big savings. It also is simply more profitable, even if you don't count the fertilizer. So again, here is a way of taking carbon out of the air, putting it into the soil, and doing so profitably. So what can you personally do to help solve the climate crisis? Eat locally produced, grass-fed beef, chicken, pork, eggs, milk. The more that we demand this, the more the practice will spread, and this can be spread the world around. It also is an incredible basis for economic development in the rest of the world, in the global south. Marvelous woman named Natalie Topa is working with poor women across the Sahel, teaching them how to do what she calls sponge agriculture. When you put carbon into the ground, it enhances water holding capacity. Every 1% increase in soil organic matter is 5 to 10 tons of carbon and 20,000 gallons of water holding capacity. So in an area where there is almost no rain, the women scratch out a little half-moon basin that catches whatever rain falls, dig a little hole, trade with nomadic herders to get a little bit of manure, put it in, plant a tree that starts to create shade, and then they plant their vegetables around it. They are re-greening the Sahel and enabling them to stay home. When you can feed yourself and your family, you no longer migrate. In India, Vijay Kumar works with largely women, smallholder farmers on an acre or landless farmers, teaching them how to do regenerative agriculture based on the work of a North Dakota corn soybean commodity farmer named Gabe Brown. Gabe was going broke. He said, I'll try anything. People said, well, stop breaking the soil, go to no-till. So he did. Then he said, how do I get nutrients into my soil? Plant cover crops, deep-rooted, diverse cover crops. Now his fields are covered in cover crops. So he turned out his cows. Cows ate down the cover crops. He drill seeded his corn and soy. Without fertilizer, he gets equal or higher yields of corn, soy, but also the crops of the cover crops. He now produces 8 different kinds of crops and is no longer going broke. In fact, he's quite profitable. So he evolved 5 principles: minimal disturbance of the soil, cover on the soil year round, living root in the soil year round, diversity of crops, and animal impact. In India, Vijay took these 5 principles and added 4 more that are indigenous to India. So no poisons, herbicides, fertilizers, pesticides, only indigenous seed, a fertilizer made of cow manure, urine, and in effect compost, and then a mycorrhizal fungal inoculant that they coat the seeds with. He has shown he can triple productivity, double profitability within a year. It has now spread to 4 million farmers in Andhra Pradesh, 9 million across India, and we're working with Vijay to take this approach. The first seeds went into the ground in Zambia last fall. The harvest is now in. It looks like quadrupled productivity, tripled profitability. And all of this is putting carbon into the soil. In Egypt, we work with Helmi Abulesh at Sechem, who does organic biodynamic farming. Again, carbon into the soil. And Helmi had the bright idea of, I could enter the world carbon market. So we helped Helmi set up a system, measured, reported, verified, using various Egyptian institutions, including the Financial Regulatory Authority of Egypt. These are high integrity carbon credits. And again, what can you do to help? Go to economyoflove.global, EOL.global, and buy carbon credits for whatever carbon you can't reduce on your own. So this is the beginning of an approach to climate restoration that, again, is profitable, is lifting people out of poverty, is the basis of international development, will help stem the flood of migrants. We can do it in our own communities. We can support it being done around the world. And a calculation by some folks at Tufts showed that if we did just regenerative grazing on the world's grasslands, within 60 to 100 years, we're back to 300 parts per million. So your goal, we know how to make it. We can do this. Now, about 4 years ago, despite all of this, you look around the world, it's not happening. It's not happening fast enough. And so I was going to give up. I had sat on the board of a little battery company which had exited happily, and an astonishing amount of money landed in my bank account. And my husband said, "You're tired. You've been going down the road real hard for a lot of years. Why don't you retire? We live on a beautiful ranch. Stay home, ride your horse, watch an eagle fly." And I thought to myself, you add up everything I've ever done. Is it enough? No, we're losing. Do I know what enough is? No. Then why go down the road? Why burn carbon? So I told Rob, all right, I'll hang up my spurs. I was asked to go on one last trip. And I met a man whom I had fought. He'd run a big UN process. And his boss is counterfeit, fan of big agriculture. And so I figured he was too. And so every time somebody argued for industrial agriculture, I would flood the chat box with URLs about why this doesn't make any sense and why we should be doing regenerative agriculture and why it's more profitable. Everything I've just told you. And in the end, the UN, we were slowly shifting this whole thing toward regenerative agriculture. I decided, being a bitch was boring, so I quit. And he promoted me. Like, oh, why did he do that? So I quit again. He promoted me again. So I'm running working groups, writing big research papers. And then the UN pulled the plug, killed the whole thing. It's like, yay, I win. That's what I wanted. And didn't think much more about it. On this last trip I was asked to go on, I was told he was going to be there. And I thought, well, now this will be fun. I'd halfways enjoy to meet the man I fought for 2 years. He got up, gave a speech on regenerative agriculture I could have given. I thought, huh. So I marched up, said, howdy, my name's Hunter Lovins. He laughed. He said, I know who you are. I said, yeah, right. After 2 years of my insurgency, I said, I may have been wrong about you. And we sat down and talked, and he pitched me on COPX, conferences of people independently organized. He said, the UN will never solve the climate crisis. And he's a very senior UN official to this day. He said, UNFCCC, UN Framework Convention on Climate Change, is structured in such a way that any one country can veto any action. Saudi makes $1 billion a day every day they delay action on climate. Yeah, really think they're going to allow anything significant to happen? And so we're now going into COP30 in Belém. In those 30 years, emissions have doubled. This is the pin from Kyoto, COP3. Yeah, I was there. And I thought, what he said was, let's empower people everywhere to solve the climate crisis in their own way. Top-down solutions aren't going to work, haven't worked. Let people do it however they want and help them. Ensure that they are part of a global network that is self-aware that 80%, north of 80% of people on Earth want aggressive climate action, but well south of 40% think anybody else feels the same way, which is to say we all feel alone. And if you think you're the only one, you're not going to step forward. And when he pitched me on this, I thought, that would be enough. And then I thought, it's too big. I've no idea how to do it. Nor do I know anybody who could. You take all the usual suspects, whatever great work they've done, Al Gore, Christiana Figueres, Bill McKibben, Greta Thunberg, they all make it about them. And this cannot be about a leader. It has to be about empowering people. So I kind of shrugged. The guy kept after me. He reckoned we needed to raise $2 million, have big events of 24 hours, 48 hours around the world, main stages, celebrities, artists, musicians, celebrating the work of ordinary people. What's happening in communities, what's possible, and build a digital platform that would connect everybody. And I thought, I've no idea how to do that. Then we wound up spending some time together, and I thought, this isn't about him. He can do it. And then he looked at me and said, will you join me? I thought, let's see, I run a little group called Natural Capitalism. I teach at Fordham. I work for a group called Now Partners. If not for all of that, I told Rob I'd retire. And I looked at him and said, I will ride for your brand. I said, you've no earthly idea what I just said, but you'll figure it out. And since then, we have been trying to do this. He said, well, you can't really talk about it because somebody would steal the idea, and you darn sure can't talk about who he was, because the UN would fire him. It's a little interesting going to a funder and saying, I have this great idea, I can't tell you what it is, and I can't tell you who's doing it. Despite that, I was able to raise a couple $100,000, but nowhere near 2 million. And so this thing has been puttering along until the US election. And then the ambassador said, just launch, do it. And I thought, well, all right then. And so this February, we sent a letter out to the about 150 people who had heard about this. We'd been telling people quietly. And to my list at Natural Capitalism Solutions, about 15,000. And we now have over 1,000 people signed up on the website, copx.global, www.copx.global, signed up to be CopX organizers. We have hit on a platform thing called Open Impact. Groups from about 70 countries are on it. And literally, 3 hours ago, Herman? And somebody just signed up. Thank you. We were talking with a young man from India who has not a platform, but a protocol that is incredibly exciting that we're talking about finding a way to partner with. So again, Herman, thank you. Join us. And somebody else just signed up. Thank you. This is the only thing that I have heard of that I think can meet your vision. We have the solutions. It isn't happening at anything like the rate that it needs to. The governments aren't going to do it. The companies aren't going to do it. But maybe we can. And when we do, not only will we solve the climate crisis, we will solve the crisis now facing democracy. We will show people that they are capable in their own communities of tackling one of the greatest problems ever to face humanity, that we can win. So maybe that's enough to kick off a conversation.
Good.
The
Carol,
website if any of the rest of you want to join us.
Carol, do you want to set up a question or two?
Well, I have, my question is actually off topic of the CapEx, but basically, I'm involved in a number of other eco-restoration groups as well, and what I'm seeing a lot of now, and what I'm seeing a lot of is carbon dioxide isn't the issue. It's not carbon, it's water vapor and other things. And I find that as a non-scientist, but pretty involved citizen, I find that confusing, and I would love your take on that.
Water vapor is one of the greenhouse gases. And how I'm not going to go deeply into the science of this, but how we are living these days is increasing the water vapor. Every time we fly, we blow out a bunch of water vapor. That turns out to be a term in the whole basket of greenhouse gases. At the same time, we know that the big terms are carbon dioxide, and which is long-lived, and methane, which is somewhat shorter-lived, but much worse for the climate than carbon dioxide. Methane comes in part from cows. When you have cows on grass, there is methanotropic bacteria in the grass, so the methane is eaten right where it's at. When you put cows on feedlots and feed them corn and soy, which they were never designed to eat, they get sick and there is no methanotropic bacteria. So yes, industrial animal production is evil, full stop.
Mm-hmm.
Grass-fed, locally raised is part of the answer. It's a very important part of the answer. And so again, we know what to do. We just have to get about it. Does that help?
Yes, I'm totally with you on all of that. It's the the evapotranspiration, that whole theory that I'm not really that kind of baffles me a little bit. Another question
again, if you do VJ's approach, where you and what Nat is doing in the Sahel, and you cover the ground. If you have bare ground, you have a problem. If you have living root in the ground year round, one of Gabe's principles,
Mhm.
now have soaking up a lot of that water vapor and putting it in the ground.
Right.
So it again, it's a huge part of the solution to the problem, just to be putting the water in the ground, putting the carbon in the ground, which holds the water.
About CapEx, that sounds really intriguing, and I'm going to look. I started looking at the website, got distracted. I'm going to go back to that. Since our organization is committed to making climate restoration an idea whose time has come, as you know, and we have our target is 2050, but basically and pre-industrial levels of CO2 by 2050. It's a good organizing target, and it would be a wonderful thing to achieve. And the first step is, of course, getting the idea accepted. In CapEx, is that something, a place, I mean, is that a place that we should be, that might help promote that idea, the idea
Yes.
of climate restoration? Mhm.
And one of the things we say is if you are part of an existing climate group, don't stop.
Oh,
You
yeah.
don't have to quit what you're doing to join COPEX. What we are trying to do is promote the good work of everybody everywhere that is who's implementing solutions. And you guys are doing that. We would love to partner with you. We are creating a site on the website for partner organizations. On the platform that we have, Open Impact, we can have subgroups where you can have your own little community inside of a larger community, but people who come to the COPEX site will see you. Or you can simply put material onto the COPEX platform saying, here's our website. If you want more detailed information, come here. We will have a whole resource library of materials.
Mm.
So people will be able to go and look at the papers you've written, the science that's out there, and choose for themselves.
Great. And when is it? Is it up and-
It's up now and running. We just need the materials sent to us, and then we will post it to the site.
Thanks.
So you can go to Open Impact
Open.
COPEX and find our community site there and join it. And the instructions to do this are also on the COPEX.
Mhm.
And Brian, I'd love to have Climate Foundation as a partner.
We'll be honored. I'm all in favor and looking forward to it, Hunter. I love your energy.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go over to Peter. But before that, I want to ask you, Hunter, we just started a campaign. It became obvious that what we needed is to get people to pledge. I'm committed to restoring the climate by mid-century. And how being on that platform might that start to accumulate pledges? Because we're just new in the game. We're committed to getting 1 million.
Work with us. We will put a place on the Open Impact site and indeed on the COPEX site where people can pledge.
Perfect.
Perfect.
Was Herman's hand up about that, or was that just a yay?
My hand was up just to try to get up in line with my hand up, but I can't, I somehow can't put it up. I just,
You can't do the digital. Okay, I'm gonna call you after I call on Peter Fikowski.
and everybody else, yeah.
I recognize real hands too.
Great, thanks. This is fantastic news, Hunter. I think we first met, it was 2016 or 17, a long time
Yes.
ago
In New York at
in
the
New York.
big conference that Russell Green helped put on.
Yeah, yeah. Long time ago. We have covered so much territory since then. It's interesting how day to day it's really frustrating. And I remember at that conference, I asked, oh God, who's the economist who was there? Uh, ah,
Okay, for a bunch of them.
yeah, anyway, his name will come back, the famous UN economist. And I said, you know, we want to restore the climate. Do you think we should make it as our specific goal? He says, no, it's impossible. That's where we were in Jeffrey Sachs, a wonderful,
yes.
wonderful, wonderful
Oh,
Jeffrey
yeah.
Sachs.
Well, he's not UN, but yes, he hangs out at the UN a bunch.
Yeah, yeah,
Jeff's
yeah.
wrong about a lot of things.
He's been wrong since the
And-
90s, so don't worry about it.
Right. Anyway, but my point is just to point at the progress we're making, because I can't imagine anyone is particularly more or less frustrated than I am every morning. But my God, we're making progress. And the COPEX is amazing. And thank you for the invitation. You know, we'll work with you on that. You know, when we were together in Dallas, I was complaining about how for 50 years we've been waiting for the government to show us a plan to restore a safe climate for our kids. And then we realize it's not their job. And that's simultaneous with your creating COPEX, where your UN guy says exactly the same thing. And it was out of that discussion that we came up with the goal to get a million pledges. And we're working with Mindahi and hopefully with you, putting together an elders council for restoring the climate. And the thinking is that, and it looks like we're going to have access. Actually, do you have access to Mary Robinson? Because she seems to be the best elder.
Yes, yes, I can get a hold of Mary.
Great. Because I think she would be, I've pitched this to her in 2018. She loved it, but that was a while ago. But yeah, she's got the stature which she can supersede the UN. That,
My ambassador was the man who brought to the UN the concept of climate justice back in the early aughts, gave it to Mary Robinson, who at the time said, I don't see what climate has to do with justice. And he pointed out that the Maldives are going to go underwater. They are going to lose their home, along with a number of other island nations. She went, oh, and created the climate justice work at the UN. And as an example of the kind of man that the ambassador is, he some years later was saying to me, you know, Mary's getting a lot of traction out of this concept that I gave to her, but he never said that publicly. And at Sharm el-Sheikh, he was on a panel with her, and somebody in the audience said, it should just be women who run the world. And Mary reached over, took his hand, held it up, and said, here is the person who brought climate justice to the UN.
oh my
He
God.
was sitting there with a tear dribbling down his face. But it, you know, it's the kind of guy he is. It isn't about him. And it
Yeah.
damn sure isn't about me. I am simply a servant of this idea.
Yeah. Anyways, so yeah, so let's work together and get that going because we have billionaires we're beginning to talk to, but they can't stick their neck out if there's not some elder, some high official saying, "Let's do it." And so yeah, I'll contact you
Brilliant.
offline and we'll make this thing
Brilliant.
happen. Uh, can we do it by the end of the first week of June?
We can certainly talk. Getting to Mary is not entirely trivial. She's
No, I
reasonably
know,
well shielded, but yes, we can
but
set about it.
we like miracles here.
They help.
Great. Thank you, Hunter. I just love having you here. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then I called on Herman, and after that, Barbara.
Barbara.
Yes.
Ramble.
I can't wait to hear Barbara, by the way.
Not Herman?
Well,
Oh, Herman.
put
Let's go
Herman
with
on.
Herman.
You picked him. I've just been looking at Barbara. I haven't talked to her actually face to face in a long time. So I'm done.
Yes.
Here.
Yep.
Anyway, go ahead, Herman.
Well, first of all, what an extraordinary talk. And imagine being so lucky as I am today to get to hang out with Hunter twice in one day. So it's just absolutely extraordinary. I just want to double up on the importance that not only do we join COPEX individually, but that we as in organizations, the organizations we're part of, join COPEX as organizations. So both individually, but also as organizations. One of the things we talked about this morning when we talked about installing this digital mycelium into COPEX that allows, you know, everything that is oriented towards the kind of mission that Hunter was describing to be effective at connecting with each other, right? That's enabled through mycelium, through this kind of digital capability, that underlying protocol that we're now talking about, that is not about scaling what works, somebody said this morning. It's about what works at scale, right? So that's what we're trying to produce with COPX. The digital element to COPX is to think about what are the minimum constructs, digital constructs we have to enable into this incredible organization that allows the vision to actually come true, to connect millions of people, to do that kind of actions that we're talking about. So I just wanted to reinforce that in terms of the importance of, this is not yet another kind of club to join. This is different. It has a different mission to connect all the good stuff that's already happening and enable it to be effective at levels that hasn't happened yet. So I just want to make that added pitch a little bit. And thank you, Hunter, for all you're doing, and thank you for seeing you again.
That's great. Okay, Barbara.
Oh, hi. Hunter, it's been a really long time, but it's so great to see you in this role and join up in this way. So the COPX concept is marvelous. And I really love how you are able to describe that all the different parts and pieces that people have figured out are part of the solution. And there isn't just one overarching solution that everybody has to bow down to, because that's not likely to be how it works. In the work I've done so far with Peter and this group, I have been rather sad to find the number of people in the environmental side of various movements lumping ocean iron fertilization in with a pile of things they are calling geoengineering, and as a package rejecting. Now, I'm not sure that this is a very large group of people, because in every forum where there actually have been decisions, even UN-based decisions like the Convention on Biological Diversity, where they do have strong opinions about damaging types of geoengineering, there's usually, I think there's, in everything I've looked at, there's always a niche carved out for learning, for testing, for pilot projects. But overall, I'm sensing in lots of different places that I did not expect it or hoped not to find it, a fairly negative approach toward even finding out whether something like ocean iron fertilization would work and be a good idea. And I just wondered how your COPX concept, with all of the tentacles and connections, plans to deal with a variety of solutions that really are kind of big industrial things that deserve the name geoengineering, and a bunch of, I would call them biomimicry approaches like ocean iron fertilization that don't, but it's all being lumped. And I think the COPX community will have to figure out how to deal with the concept and the negative connotations to the word geoengineering. Wondered what you had encountered in your putting this together, and it would counsel us, be very helpful to know if you got a counter argument.
I've spent a lot of my life arguing.
I know.
And have
Me too.
decided of late we don't have the time. There's a lesson from riding bicycles, mountain bikes, even dirt bikes. You see a rock in the road. If you look at it, you are going to hit it. It's a rock. Go around it. And so what we're doing with COPEX is, let's go. What are the solutions that we know we have that are cost effective today, that people can implement themselves in their own communities? Let's go. And let's work as hard as we can, each one of us and collectively, on what we know we can do. Now, if if you put enough engines on it, you can get a bathtub airborne. If you throw enough money at it, you can make any technology look cost effective for a while, which is why people are saying we're going to have a nuclear renaissance. Actually, no, we're not. The new nukes come on at around 20 cents a kilowatt hour. The so-called small modular reactors, they're not going to happen. Much of the geoengineering won't happen. It's too expensive. Witness
Mhm.
the failure this week of Climeworks.
Yeah.
And if ocean fertilization can be shown to be cost effective, it'll happen. If, again, it can be shown that it is not damaging, and there's enough science that has convinced me that it is not particularly damaging. It's one of the things the Earth does by dust storms that fall into the ocean. Rock weathering, enhanced rock weathering of olivine is another decarbonization technology. But again, a lot of these are incredibly costly. We heard numbers down in Texas that, and Carol told me Peter has what appear to be better numbers, but that the iron fertilization is not going to happen before 2030, even in best case. And it's at sequestering a gigaton at $50 a ton. That the trials would cost 50 million for the first set of trials, 15 million for the second set. And the advocate said, well, the federal government will pay for this. I don't think so. So
No.
rather than say, where's the money? We can't do it. We don't have the money. Meanwhile, let's get on with what we do know. Now, the climate, reality is a stern change agent. The climate is going to remind us that we're in a crisis. How many of you have read this book? Stan Robinson's Ministry for the Future. It's not easy reading. And in the first chapter, millions of people die because of a heat wave in India. And right now, today in India, the temperatures are hotter than Death Valley at its height. China's now in a massive heat wave. Governments are going to start doing this stuff, whether we like it or not. And indeed, in the book, one of the first acts that happens is India said, we're going to spray sulfur into the atmosphere.
Mhm.
This stuff's going to start happening because people feel they're not going to have a choice. So it is worth adding up. What are the options that we know that are right now profitable? What are the options that are low cost? What are the options that are a bit higher cost, but that look to have a very high payoff? Looks to me like ocean iron fertilization is going to be on that short list of, we really ought to be trying this stuff and see just how big a contribution it can make.
We'll have to figure it out.
Well, again, we don't have to. And Janine Benyus, the framer of biomimicry, says in nature, failures are fossils. There is nothing that says this human experiment will succeed. But I do think it's up to us to do our best to make it succeed.
Thanks.
Hunter, if I can just add a nuance on the cost of ocean fertilization, the main issue there is the measurement. And as long as you're operating at scale, we can just measure the CO2 in the air. We can even use satellites. I discovered 2 weeks ago that the new EDF methane sat also detects CO2 with the sensitivity. So we could do the measurement from the satellite. And after, it's a little coarser than we want. But the point is, the cost way below $1 a ton is to be.
$1 a ton is very attractive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not
so-
as attractive as profitable, but still attractive.
Right, right. And the other part there is, I didn't discuss it at length in Texas, but making something profitable is a matter of marketing. If you don't market it, it's never going to be profitable. And so our plan is to put enough money into marketing that our children have a planet to live on. So that the billionaire class says, yeah, I'll put in 1% of my annual income. Done. That's not a hard sell because that's what all grandparents want. And if they have extra money, and a lot of us do, they'll put money in. So, but it's marketing that makes it profitable. Just
Yes.
remember that. Okay.
This is really great. I see we have 1, 2, 3, 4 people who'd like to ask or say something. We're scheduled to stop at the top of the hour.
I'm happy to hang out as long as y'all want.
Okay, good, but maybe till 10 after or so if we need, but please do keep your questions or comments concise. Okay, Craig.
Yes, just two real quick ones. Hunter, do you happen to know David Bloom in Watsonville, California? He's very big on regenerative agriculture. I asked him if he knew you, and he said he'd met you once several years ago.
Yes.
Anyway,
Yes.
my other question was just which of your books should I read first?
Oh, A Finer Future. Do not read Natural Capitalism unless you're a historian of sustainability. Finer Future is a much better, I think, a much better book, much more fun to read. And
That's
thank
it. Thank
I
you.
agree. I'm in the middle of it. I got a signed copy in Texas.
Fantastic.
Alan?
Yes, thank you for the material you gave me in Texas about the storage. I've shared it with people in Quest Science Center, and it's creating a fair amount of interest. One of the big things is scale, as was said earlier. You mentioned in your email and down there personally, it was 4 to 5 gigatons per year. I thought you said today 20 gigatons per year. And I'd like you to clarify that figure. But just one other thing, I just listened to a seminar last week by Drawdown, and they studied whether or not bioplastics replacing petroplastics was going to contribute to this solution of the climate warming, and they concluded no, it was insignificant. And so we need to be thinking about things that actually are going to operate at the gigaton or multi-gigaton scale, or else we're wasting our effort.
Yes, I absolutely agree with your conclusion. The numbers get very squirrely very quickly. To start with, are you talking about carbon or are you talking about CO2? And I try to standardize on carbon.
Ah, okay, yeah.
And I try to take science from reputable scientists and then run forward projections. So the number that I'm currently working off of, 25 gigaton a year that can be sequestered through grazing. This is assuming you do regenerative grazing on all the world's grasslands. We're not going to. The 4 gigaton is the net human contribution. Because we emit, what is it, 37 point something gigaton a year, but much of that goes into the ocean or into the terrestrial sinks. The net add is around 4 gigaton a year. That's what Rodale calculated through organic gardening, basically, farming. You can soak up and put back into the soil. And so it's somewhere between the range of 4 gigaton a year and 25 gigaton a year. If we decided we are in a flat out global emergency and we're going to use wartime emergency measures to solve it, and we did regenerative grazing everywhere, that's the upper limit is 25 gigaton. But all we need to do is 4 gigaton a year to be neutral. And then anything extra, you're doing carbon removal. So 4 gigaton added was what the French 4 per 1,000 said we could do. So offsetting and reducing an additional 4 gigaton through regenerative agriculture, that's a very reasonable number. It's a question of how fast do you want to run climate change in reverse. If you really want to run it hard in reverse, then you go hard on holistic grazing, do it everywhere that you have grasslands, which is to say we all need to eat a lot more grass-fed beef, drink a lot more grass-fed milk. So that's roughly the ranges. Does that make sense?
Yes, yes. I thank you very much for clarifying that. It helps a lot.
That's great. Brian, did you have your hand up and it went down or not? Dr. Brian?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Good. Okay, good. Sally?
Well, I say the cavalry is here. The cavalry is coming and the cavalry is here. This is such a breath of air of possibility for me personally, and I suspect for many of us, if not all of us. This, you speak that climate restoration's time has come. You speak it.
Yes.
And we're on. And that you have a way to connect, that you are beginning to connect the world in this is just so heartwarming and wonderful. Thank you.
You are so very welcome. You're right. The cavalry's here. It's us.
It's us.
And thank you for wearing your hat. Oh, next,
Yeah.
Helen.
And along that line, let me just add, people mark your calendars for EarthX next year. April, Earth Day is April 22nd, so whatever those dates
That
are.
week.
That week. Yeah. And plan to join us because the bigger the cavalry, the faster it goes.
Save your
And you can
pennies
see
to
here
go.
what happened just with the 30 or 50 of us there.
Yeah, yeah. Alan. Hi, Alan.
Hi, Hunter. I don't know if you remember me or not.
I do.
I met you a long time ago when you were still married to Emery. Anyway, and I was an early adopter of ChangeX. Anyway, so anyway, I'm really glad to see you doing this because so I was the co-chair for the climate reality project for the Bay Area. I basically was coming to meetings like, different organizations, Climate Action California, Foundation for Climate Reality, Citizens Climate Lobby, because there's so many different groups basically doing very similar thing or, have similar goals, same goal is to, stop climate change. But there wasn't, so there was a lot of, I wanted recreating the wheel, we're all trying to do the same thing. So anyway, I'm really glad to see that someone who understands the big picture, because this is kind of what I was trying to do, was to collaborate and coordinate these different organizations, 350.org. There's so many of us, so many different organizations. So I'm really glad to see an effort that is, that can harness all of our collective wisdom on this subject to, fix this problem that is, existential. So anyway, I appreciate you and thank you very much. And that's all I wanted to say.
Great. Do you know what? It's in my part of the globe, 5 o'clock on that nose. We have a couple of announcements, but before that, I want to totally acknowledge you, Hunter. You've taken the conversation to a whole new level. And you get an honorary Foundation for Climate Restoration badge. We don't have one yet, but out of tonight, we're going to create one for you. You really are, you know, a complete spokesperson for restoring the climate. Any final words you want to put in here before we have just one or two announcements? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you all so much. Thank you for caring. And I'm truly honored to be working with you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Thank you.
Um,
And I just checked, April 22nd, 2026.
That's right. And don't just come for a day and a half. That's what I did. I got whiplash and I'm still working with taking the thing off my neck. I only went for a day and a half and it was fast and furious. It's a wonderful thing to go to for several days. There's lots of different speakers and things, but I'm sure we'll have a full day on climate restoration, Peter, right?
I think it'll be 2 days.
Good. All right. To be determined. And also I want to say, we meet weekly, and I'm sure this is going to up the level of our conversation next week. Next week, we've invited Peter Fikowski to join us at our call to brainstorm, and we've already got a little answer to brainstorm. Recently, we created a pledge because it's a no-brainer getting 1 million people to commit to the goal. Not net zero, the climate restored to pre-industrial levels by mid-century. And, you know, so we created the pledge and we're going to do a brainstorming on how to do the 1 million within the next 6 months or a year. And we need young people to help us. This isn't, there was one that I did back in 1977 for making the end of hunger an idea whose time has come. And we were out at Golden Gate Park every weekend and we got 6 million. The people got 6 million, which turned the tide on hunger and starvation. We don't have that time. So we're going to have a brainstorming next week on the Wednesday call, same time, same station. Mark, back to you. Is there anything else that's been missed? You're on mute.
I of course love this entire presentation. I could go on for another hour.
Check out.
And and thank you for introducing everybody to the pledge so thoroughly here. We would like every one of you, all of you, join us next week at the same time, and we'll be sending out the. I think I've captured all of your emails, or if you haven't put your email in the chat, please do, and I will make sure we get it, even though it's the end of the meeting. And we are going to begin the brainstorming process, and you can be part of this initial brainstorming process of how we're going to reach 1 million people, affixing their name to this pledge to restore the climate by 2050, and adding that momentum to this commitment. So we hope to see you next week, and we like to.
Mark, can you just mention that if people we're talking about the pledge, but we want people to go ahead and take the pledge right now. If you'd like, the website should be in the chat. All you have to do is go to our website and hit on the button, sign the pledge, take the pledge.
Yeah. Thank you, Alan Hyman, the president of the board. Thank you for reminding us not to leave that out. Let's get that up on the site right now. And just www.F4CR.org, and the pledge will pop right up, and it's a simple sign. Have a great evening, everybody, and a great day for those of you in New Zealand. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.